Cannabis. Cannabis is a psychoactive drug made from the marijuana plant. It's most often smoked, vaped, or eaten as an edible. The main active chemical is THC, which interacts with the brain's endocannabinoid system, the network that regulates mood, memory, and perception. When THC enters the bloodstream, it rushes to the brain and binds to receptors that normally handle natural chemicals called anandamides, molecules that help you feel relaxed and balanced. That's when the onset hits. Time slows down, your senses sharpen, and everything feels slightly funnier, warmer, softer. At its peak, cannabis can heighten creativity and calm, or tip into confusion and paranoia depending on the dose and mindset. Music sounds deeper, colors feel stronger, and ideas seem profound. It's a distortion of normal reality that feels both dreamy and focused at once. As the come-down begins, thought slows, speech drifts, and tiredness sets in. For some, it's gentle. For others, it's heavy, an invisible fog that lingers into the next morning. Cannabis is mildly addictive, but mostly psychologically. Regular use can dull motivation, mess with short-term memory, and in heavy doses, trigger anxiety or panic. It's often called harmless, but it quietly reshapes how your brain rewards relaxation. Cocaine. Cocaine is a powerful stimulant made from coca leaves. It's most commonly snorted as a white powder, but can also be smoked or injected. Once it enters the bloodstream, it floods the brain with dopamine, blocking your body from reabsorbing it. Suddenly, your brain is drowning in pleasure signals. The onset is almost instant, a rush of euphoria, energy, and confidence. Your heart pounds, your pupils widen, and your brain feels electric. Every thought feels brilliant. Every move feels perfect. You feel untouchable. At the peak, you're fast, focused, and alive. But the brain's reward system is already burning through its fuel. The high is sharp and short. Within minutes, dopamine levels crash, and the come-down slams in. Anxiety rises, mood drops, and exhaustion hits. You crave more just to feel normal again. Cocaine is highly addictive. The brain quickly learns to link it with pleasure, motivation, and control. But it's an illusion. Each hit rewires you to need another. Over time, it damages the heart, constricts blood vessels, and rewires brain chemistry so deeply that joy without it feels impossible. Methamphetamine. Methamphetamine is a powerful stimulant, a chemical that floods your brain with dopamine and adrenaline, supercharging everything at once. It's often taken by smoking, swallowing, snorting, or injection, and within seconds, it hits like a lightning bolt. As the onset begins, energy explodes. Your heart races, your mind sharpens, and every sense turns up to maximum volume. You feel awake, unstoppable, invincible. Talk becomes fast, thoughts move quicker than words, and sleep feels completely optional. At the peak, the rush is pure intensity. Confidence turns into euphoria. Motivation becomes obsession. You might clean your whole house, talk for hours, or chase a goal that suddenly feels like destiny. It feels like control, but your brain's just burning through its entire dopamine supply in one go. Then comes the come-down, and it's harsh. Energy vanishes. The mind crashes into exhaustion, depression, and paranoia. The world feels gray, slow, and empty, a chemical hangover that can last for days. Meth is extremely addictive. Each high rewires your brain to crave that rush again, while destroying the system that creates pleasure naturally. Over time, it leads to severe weight loss, insomnia, hallucinations, and memory loss. Meth gives you energy that feels infinite, until you realize it's stolen from your future self. MDMA. MDMA, better known as ecstasy or Molly, is a synthetic stimulant and hallucinogen. It's usually swallowed as a pill or capsule at parties or clubs. The chemical floods your brain with serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin, the trio responsible for happiness, reward, and connection. As the onset begins, warmth spreads through your body. Music sounds richer, lights shimmer, and touch feels electric. You feel deeply connected to friends, to strangers, to everything around you. The brain is running on maximum empathy. At the peak, serotonin levels spike and the world feels perfect. You dance for hours. You talk nonstop. You feel infinite. But MDMA burns through the brain's supply of serotonin so fast that within hours, the come-down starts. Emotion drains out of you, replaced by emptiness, sadness, or exhaustion. The high leaves as suddenly as it arrived. Used too often, MDMA damages the neurons that release serotonin, making natural happiness harder to reach. Physically, it can overheat your body, dehydrate you, and in rare cases, cause organ failure. It's called a love drug because it makes you feel connected to everyone, but when it's over, you realize that connection was chemical, not real, and your brain's left paying the price. LSD. LSD is a hallucinogen, a mind-bending chemical that completely rewires how your brain processes reality. It's usually taken on tiny papers placed on the tongue, and the amount you ingest is microscopic, measured in millionths of a gram. Once it hits, LSD binds to serotonin receptors, particularly one called 5-HT2A, which helps shape perception and mood. That's when the onset begins. Patterns start moving, colors shift, sounds seem to glow. It's not like seeing hallucinations appear, it's like reality itself starts breathing. At the peak, which can last for hours, time loses meaning. Your sense of self, the part of your brain that says, "I'm me," dissolves. You might feel connected to the universe, euphoric, terrified, or both. Emotions become physical. Music feels alive. The boundaries between thoughts and sensations blur until everything feels like one continuous wave. Then comes the come down, slow, gentle, like returning from orbit. Reality rebuilds itself piece by piece. You might feel calm, reflective, or emotionally drained. Some people describe it as a reset, others as being rewired. LSD isn't physically addictive, but it's unpredictable. The same dose can be bliss or nightmare, depending on your mindset and environment. It can also trigger flashbacks or anxiety long after the trip is over. LSD opens the mind, but it doesn't always close the door cleanly behind it. Ketamine. Ketamine is a dissociative anesthetic, originally designed for surgery. It's used medically today in small doses to treat depression, but recreationally, it's taken for its out-of-body effects. It's snorted as a powder or injected in liquid form. When it enters your system, ketamine blocks a chemical messenger called glutamate, which helps your brain process sensory input and maintain awareness. The onset comes fast. Within minutes, the world starts to feel distant, muffled, almost dreamlike. At the peak, perception detaches completely. You might feel like you're floating above your body, or watching your life from a distance, what users call the K-hole. Time stops making sense. You might see yourself from the outside, or feel like you've left your body entirely. It's not always pleasant. For some, it's peaceful. For others, terrifying. As the come down begins, awareness slowly returns. Vision clears, speech reconnects, but the world still feels foggy. For a short while, it can leave you strangely calm, like your thoughts are moving underwater. Ketamine isn't classically addictive, but it builds tolerance fast. Heavy use can cause memory problems, bladder damage, and emotional numbness. It can disconnect you from pain, but also from meaning. It's a drug that separates body from mind, and sometimes they don't fully meet again. Opioids. Opioids are painkillers that come from the opium poppy, or are made synthetically in labs. They're used medically as morphine or oxycodone, but on the street, they show up as heroin or fentanyl. They're swallowed, smoked, snorted, or injected, and all work the same way. They attach to opioid receptors in your brain and body, blocking pain and flooding you with euphoria. The onset brings warmth, comfort, and relief. A deep, heavy calm that feels like safety itself. Pain fades, stress disappears, and your body melts. It's not an energetic high. It's like sinking into the world's softest blanket. At the peak, everything slows. Breathing becomes shallow, your heartbeat slows, and thoughts drift. It's bliss, but dangerously close to unconsciousness. Many users chase that feeling, but each time it's shorter, weaker, harder to reach. Then comes the come down, and it's brutal. Anxiety, muscle pain, nausea, sweating, insomnia. Every nerve in your body screams for the drug again. That's withdrawal. It doesn't just make you want more. It makes life unbearable without it. Opioids are among the most addictive substances known. They rewire the brain's survival system, teaching it that the drug is as essential as air. Over time, they destroy tolerance, organs, relationships, everything. The warmth they give in the beginning is the same warmth they take away from everything else in life. Caffeine. Caffeine is a stimulant, a chemical that speeds up your brain and nervous system. It's found in coffee, tea, soda, and energy drinks, powering billions of people every morning. For most, it isn't just a drink, it's a ritual. The day doesn't begin until that first sip hits. Once you drink it, caffeine enters your bloodstream and quickly travels to your brain. There, it blocks a chemical called adenosine, which is what tells your brain it's tired. So caffeine doesn't give you energy, it just hides your exhaustion. Your neurons start firing faster, your heart beats stronger, and suddenly you feel sharper, more alive. Within 20 to 30 minutes, the peak kicks in. You're focused, energized, and motivated. The world feels clearer, easier, more controllable. It's not euphoria, it's confidence in a cup. But as your body breaks it down, adenosine floods back, and you crash. That clear focus fades into irritability, jitteriness, and the creeping thought that maybe one more coffee will fix it. Caffeine is mildly addictive, but it hides behind routine. Over time, your brain adjusts and stops producing as much natural alertness. You need more caffeine to feel normal. Quit suddenly and you'll notice it. Headaches, fatigue, and brain fog. We joke about needing coffee to live, but that's withdrawal disguised as culture. The truth is, caffeine doesn't wake you up. It just delays your tiredness until later. Nicotine. Nicotine is a fast-acting stimulant found in tobacco and vapes. The chemical that hooks people, not the smoke itself. It's inhaled through smoke or vapor, and within seconds it hits the brain, releasing a surge of dopamine, the chemical that makes you feel calm, focused, and content. At first, it feels perfect. Your heart rate rises just a little, your thoughts clear up, and stress melts away. That's the onset. A brief, clean high that feels controlled. For a few minutes, your brain runs smoother. But nicotine burns out quickly. As dopamine fades, the calm turns into tension, restlessness, and a craving for another hit. That's the come down, and it's what keeps people chained to the cycle. Each puff gives temporary relief from the discomfort that the last puff created. That's the trap. Nicotine doesn't actually relax you. It just resets withdrawal. Your brain learns that peace only exists between cravings. Over time, nicotine changes how your brain releases dopamine, meaning without it, everything feels dull and flat. Physically, it damages your lungs, blood vessels, and heart. But mentally, it's even worse. It convinces you that you can't cope without it. Alcohol. Alcohol is a depressant, meaning it slows down your brain and nervous system. It's drunk everywhere. At parties, dinners, celebrations, commiserations. People drink to loosen up, to forget, or just to belong. Once it enters your bloodstream, it starts disrupting how your brain communicates with itself. At first, that feels good. The onset brings warmth, relaxation, and a sense of confidence. You feel more open, more social. Your thoughts quiet down, your body relaxes, and the moment feels easy. For a while, alcohol seems like the key to connection. Then comes the peak. Judgment fades, emotions rise. You talk louder, laugh harder, maybe cross lines you wouldn't sober. The body starts losing balance, coordination slips, but the brain still feels like everything's fine. That's the illusion. Alcohol slows your brain while convincing you you're still in control. Eventually, the come-down hits. The fun tilts into exhaustion. The warmth turns heavy. The buzz turns blurry. Hours later, you're dehydrated, nauseous, and foggy. The next morning, your brain chemistry crashes completely. The hangover. Alcohol is addictive in quiet, familiar ways. The more often you drink, the more your brain expects it to relax. Soon you're not drinking for fun, but just to feel normal. Over time, it damages your liver, weakens your heart, and erodes your self-control. It's a chemical that makes you feel alive, while slowly dulling everything that makes you human. Psilocybin, better known as magic mushrooms, is a hallucinogen found in certain fungi. It's eaten raw, brewed as tea, or ground into capsules. Once consumed, the body converts psilocybin into psilocin, which interacts with serotonin receptors in the brain. The onset starts within half an hour. Your senses sharpen, patterns shimmer, and reality begins to ripple. Laughter comes easily. Music feels alive. You're aware of everything at once. Your body, your breath, the air around you. At the peak, perception transforms completely. Colors pulse. Time stretches. and you may feel a deep connection to nature, memory, or emotion. Some describe it as enlightenment, others as chaos. It's like your mind dissolves into something bigger, beautiful or overwhelming, depending on what you bring into it. As the come down arrives, thoughts settle. The world slowly rebuilds itself. You might feel peaceful, grateful, or emotionally open. But for some, it leaves confusion or anxiety that lingers for days. Psilocybin isn't physically addictive, but it's powerful. It can help people break old patterns, or, in the wrong setting, trigger panic or psychosis. Mushrooms don't show you something new. They just pull back the curtain on what's already in your mind. Benzodiazepine. Benzodiazepines, or benzos, are sedatives prescribed to treat anxiety, panic attacks, or insomnia. They're usually taken as pills, and they work by enhancing GABA, a brain chemical that slows down activity and brings calm. After swallowing one, the onset feels like relief. Muscles loosen, thoughts quiet, and the world stops feeling so sharp. Your heart slows, your body relaxes, and stress drifts away like fog. At the peak, everything feels soft and distant. Worry fades, time drifts, and sleep comes easily. But as the come down starts, drowsiness turns to confusion, memory slips, and emotion flattens. With frequent use, the brain forgets how to stay calm without it. Benzos are highly addictive, especially when used beyond prescription. Over time, tolerance builds fast, meaning you need more for the same calm. Stopping suddenly can cause anxiety, tremors, or even seizures, a withdrawal that can be dangerous without medical help. They quiet your mind, but silence can be addictive. The danger isn't the calm they bring, it's how easily they convince you that you can't live without it. Methadone, meow meow. Methadone, or meow meow, is a synthetic stimulant that exploded in popularity during the late 2000s as a legal alternative to MDMA and cocaine. Nicknamed meow meow or MCAT, it's snorted as powder, swallowed in capsules, or occasionally injected. For a brief window, it was legal and sold openly online before governments caught up and banned it. Once consumed, methadone floods your brain with serotonin, dopamine, and norepinephrine all at once. The rush is faster than MDMA, but shorter than cocaine. The onset hits within minutes if snorted. Euphoria surges through you. Energy spikes, and everything feels electric and perfect. Your heart races, pupils dilate, and conversation flows endlessly. You feel invincible, social, and deeply connected to everyone around you. At the peak, the high is intense but fleeting. Music sounds incredible. Touch feels amazing. And every moment pulses with possibility. But within 30 to 60 minutes, it starts fading. That's when the trap closes. The come down arrives fast and harsh. The euphoria vanishes, replaced by anxiety, restlessness, and an overwhelming urge to redose immediately. So you do, then again, then again. The compulsion to keep using is stronger than almost any other drug. Users binge for hours or days, chasing a high that gets weaker with each line. When the supply finally runs out, the crash is brutal. Depression, paranoia, insomnia, and complete emotional exhaustion. Your brain's serotonin reserves are depleted, leaving you hollow for days. 25I-NBOME, INBOM series. 25I-NBOME is a synthetic psychedelic often sold as LSD, but far more dangerous. It's pretty much fake acid. It's laid on blotter paper, looks identical to acid tabs, and costs less to produce. Most people who take it think they're getting LSD until the effects feel wrong. The difference matters because NBOME can kill you on a single tab. Once absorbed through the mouth or under the tongue, 25I-NBOME binds aggressively to serotonin receptors, particularly the 5-HT2A receptor. The onset begins within 20 to 40 minutes. Visuals hit hard and fast, often more intense than LSD. Colors oversaturate, patterns twist violently, and reality fractures into geometric chaos. Your body feels strange, tingly, electric. At the peak, the trip can be overwhelming. Hallucinations dominate, thought loops spiral, and paranoia creeps in. Unlike LSD, which feels somewhat gentle and exploratory, NBOME feels harsh, jittery, and physically uncomfortable. Your heart rate spikes dangerously high, blood pressure rises, and seizures can occur without warning. Some users report numbness in their limbs or difficulty breathing. As the come-down stretches over 6 to 10 hours, exhaustion and confusion linger. Anxiety and panic attacks are common. The real danger is the unpredictability. Because it's sold as acid, people often take multiple tabs expecting LSD's safety profile. But NBOME's toxic dose sits close to its active dose. Deaths have occurred from single hits. There's no safe way to eyeball it. The blotter that promises enlightenment might deliver a seizure, a heart attack, or brain damage instead. Ibogaine. Ibogaine is a psychedelic compound extracted from the root bark of the iboga plant, native to Central Africa. For decades, it's been used in underground clinics to treat opioid addiction because it reportedly resets the brain's dependency pathways. The experience lasts 24 to 36 hours and feels nothing like a recreational trip. Once swallowed as a capsule or powder, ibogaine floods your system and interacts with multiple neurotransmitter systems at once, including serotonin, dopamine, and opioid receptors. The onset begins within 1 to 3 hours. Nausea hits first, often violently. Your body feels heavy, immobilized, pinned to the bed. Then the visions start. At the peak, you're locked inside your mind for hours. Eyes closed, you watch your life replay in vivid detail. Memories you forgot, trauma you buried, choices you regret. Some describe it as confronting your entire existence at once. There's no euphoria, no escape, just raw psychological exposure. Users report understanding their addiction from the outside, seeing the patterns clearly for the first time. As the come-down slowly unfolds over the next day, physical withdrawal symptoms from opioids vanish almost entirely. Cravings reduce or disappear. The brain's reward system seems to reset. But ibogaine is cardiotoxic. It can cause irregular heartbeats, and deaths have occurred, particularly in people with pre-existing heart conditions or when used without medical supervision. The substance that promises to free you from addiction can stop your heart in the process. 5-MeO-DMT, toad venom. Better known as toad venom, 5-MeO-DMT is one of the most powerful psychedelics known, extracted from the venom of the Sonoran desert toad or synthesized in labs. It's vaporized and inhaled, and the experience lasts only 10 to 20 minutes. But those minutes erase your sense of self completely. People describe it as ego death, the total dissolution of identity, memory, and awareness. Once inhaled, 5-MeO-DMT floods serotonin receptors with overwhelming intensity. The onset is instantaneous. Within seconds, reality vanishes. You don't see visuals or hallucinations because there's no you left to see anything. Your sense of being a person disappears entirely. At the peak, there's no time, no body, no thoughts. Some report merging with the universe, experiencing infinite white light, or feeling an overwhelming presence of pure existence. Others describe it as terrifying, like being erased from reality while still somehow conscious. There's no narrative, no storyline, just raw, formless experience beyond language. Then, just as suddenly, the come-down begins. Your sense of self rebuilds piece by piece. You remember your name, your body, the room you're in. Most people are left shaken, speechless, struggling to process what just happened. Some feel profound peace or spiritual awakening. Others feel traumatized. 5-MeO-DMT is not physically dangerous, but psychologically it's among the most intense substances that exist. There's no easing into it, no controlling the experience. The toad venom that shamans use for transcendence doesn't take you on a journey. It deletes you completely, then brings you back. Nitrous oxide, laughing gas balloons. Nitrous oxide is laughing gas, the same chemical dentists use to keep patients calm during procedures. Recreationally, people inhale it from whipped cream canisters or balloons at parties and festivals. It feels harmless because it's legal, medical, and the high lasts only 30 seconds. But those 30 seconds cut off oxygen to your brain. When you inhale nitrous oxide, it floods your lungs and enters your bloodstream, traveling instantly to your brain. There, it blocks NMDA receptors, the same ones affected by ketamine and alcohol. The onset hits within seconds. Sound becomes muffled and distorted, like you're underwater. Your body feels weightless, detached, and a wave of euphoria rushes through you. Everything seems hilarious, profound, or both at once. At the peak, reality bends. Your sense of self dissolves briefly. Some people describe a ringing sensation, a feeling of being pulled backward, or the sense, strange, that they've understood something important about existence. Then it ends as fast as it started. Within a minute, the world snaps back. You're left slightly dizzy, disoriented, and craving another hit immediately. That's the trap. Because the high is so short, people inhale repeatedly, sometimes dozens of times in one session. Each time, your brain is starved of oxygen. Do it often enough, and nitrous oxide depletes vitamin B12, which your nerves need to function. Long-term users develop numbness, difficulty walking, and permanent nerve damage. DXM. DXM, or more commonly known as robo-tripping, is dextromethorphan, the active ingredient in over-the-counter cough syrup. At normal doses, it suppresses coughs. At high doses, it becomes a dissociative hallucinogen that separates your mind from your body. People drink entire bottles of syrup, swallow handfuls of gel caps, or extract the powder. The experience is called robo-tripping because your movements become stiff and mechanical. Once consumed, DXM converts in your liver into DXO, which blocks NMDA receptors in your brain, the same receptors affected by ketamine and PCP. The onset creeps in slowly over an hour. Your body feels heavy, distant, like you're piloting it remotely. Nausea hits hard at first, a side effect of chugging syrup meant for teaspoons. At lower doses, the peak feels dreamy and floaty. Music sounds richer, thoughts drift, and reality softens around the edges. But at higher doses, the experience shifts into full dissociation. You might see closed-eye visuals, feel like you're watching yourself from across the room, or lose track of where your body ends and space begins. Time stretches. Your bathroom mirror becomes a portal. Coordination vanishes completely. As the come-down starts, grogginess takes over. Your thoughts move like sludge, speech slurs, and a chemical hangover lingers for hours or even days. DXM builds tolerance rapidly, meaning each trip requires more to reach the same level. Heavy use causes memory problems, liver damage, and a condition called Olney's lesions, where parts of your brain physically deteriorate. 2CB. 2CB is a synthetic psychedelic created in a lab during the 1970s. It sits somewhere between MDMA and LSD, offering both visual hallucinations and emotional warmth. People take it as powder or pills at raves, festivals, and clubs because the experience feels more controllable than a full acid trip. Once swallowed, 2CB binds to serotonin receptors in your brain, particularly that states that shape perception and mood. The onset begins within 30 to 45 minutes, often with nausea that fades as the drug takes hold. Colors start to intensify, patterns begin to breathe, and your body feels electric and sensitive to touch. At the peak, visuals bloom without overwhelming you. Surfaces ripple, light trails behind moving objects, and everything pulses with energy. Music feels physical, like you can see sound waves moving through the air. Emotionally, you feel open and connected, but clearer than on MDMA. You can still think, hold conversations, and stay grounded in reality, even while it shifts around you. The experience lasts 4 to 6 hours, shorter than LSD. As the come-down arrives, visuals fade gradually, and your thoughts return to normal. Some people feel energized afterward, others exhausted. There's no harsh crash, just a slow descent back to baseline. 2CB can trigger anxiety or paranoia at higher doses, and like all psychedelics, set and setting determine whether the trip feels magical or terrifying. Physically, it's relatively safe, but the powder is easy to overdose because active doses are measured in milligrams. A few extra milligrams can turn a pleasant trip into hours of overwhelming chaos. Kratom. Kratom is a tropical leaf from Southeast Asia that acts like a mild opioid, legally sold in gas stations, smoke shops, and online. People brew it as tea, swallow it in capsules, or mix the powder into drinks. Most users treat it like coffee, something to boost energy or ease pain. But it binds to the same brain receptors as morphine and heroin, just with less intensity. Once it enters your bloodstream, kratom's active chemicals, mitragynine and 7-hydroxymitragynine, attach to opioid receptors in your brain. At low doses, the onset feels stimulating. Energy rises, focus sharpens, and pain fades. You feel awake, motivated, and capable. It's subtle enough that you might not realize you're high. At higher doses, the peak shifts completely. Stimulation turns to sedation. Your body relaxes, warmth spreads through your limbs, and stress dissolves. It feels like a gentle opioid hug. Comfortable, safe, controllable. Then comes the come down. The energy drains, leaving you tired and irritable. If you've been using it daily, stopping brings withdrawal, sweating, nausea, muscle aches, insomnia, and anxiety. The symptoms are milder than heroin, but they're real. Kratom is psychologically and physically addictive. Your brain starts expecting it to function normally, and tolerance builds fast. Over time, users need more to feel anything at all. Legally, it exists in a gray zone, banned in some states, unregulated in others. People call it a natural alternative, a harmless plant. But your brain doesn't care where opioids come from. GHB. GHB is gamma-hydroxybutyrate, a central nervous system depressant that exists naturally in your brain in tiny amounts. Synthetic versions are used medically to treat narcolepsy, but recreationally it's taken as a clear, salty liquid, measured in capfuls or milliliters. People use it for euphoria, lowered inhibitions, and enhanced sociability. The problem is the safe dose and the deadly dose are dangerously close. Once consumed, GHB enhances GABA, the neurotransmitter that slows brain activity and promotes relaxation. It also triggers a release of dopamine and growth hormone. The onset begins within 15 to 30 minutes. Your body loosens, anxiety melts away, and a warm wave of euphoria spreads through you. At the right dose, the peak feels like the best parts of alcohol without the sloppiness. You're social, confident, and physically relaxed. Music sounds better, touch feels heightened, and everything seems easy and flowing. But add even one extra capful, and the experience flips. Speech slurs, motor control vanishes, and memory starts cutting out in chunks. Go slightly further, and you're unconscious, breathing shallow, potentially slipping into a coma. The margin for error is razor thin. As the come down hits after 2 to 4 hours, you might wake up confused, nauseous, or not remember the night at all. GHB is highly addictive, with severe physical dependence. Withdrawal causes tremors, insomnia, anxiety, and, in extreme cases, seizures that require hospitalization. The substance that promises effortless social flow can stop your breathing with a single mismeasured dose. Euphoria and unconsciousness are separated by a teaspoon. PCP. PCP is phencyclidine, a dissociative anesthetic developed in the 1950s for surgery, but abandoned because patients woke up agitated and psychotic. Now it exists as a street drug, smoked on cigarettes or joints, snorted as powder, or injected. The urban legends about superhuman strength and violent outbursts have roots in reality. Once it enters your system, PCP blocks NMDA receptors in your brain, severing the connection between sensory input and emotional response. The onset begins within minutes if smoked, longer if swallowed. Your body feels numb and distant, like you're controlling it through a thick fog. Pain disappears completely. At low doses, the peak brings euphoria, distorted perception, and a floating sensation. But at higher doses, reality fractures. You lose the ability to distinguish between thoughts and actions, between yourself and your surroundings. Some users report feeling invincible, detached from consequences, or convinced they're in a different place entirely. Time collapses, speech becomes garbled, and coordination vanishes. The dissociation is so complete that physical harm doesn't register. That's where the stories come from. People on PCP don't feel injuries, fear, or exhaustion, so they keep moving long after their body should have stopped. As the come-down stretches over hours or even days, confusion, paranoia, and aggression can linger. Memory gaps are common. Some users experience flashbacks or persistent psychosis that lasts weeks. PCP is unpredictable and psychologically addictive. The drug that disconnects you from pain also disconnects you from reality, reason, and self-preservation. Phenibut. Phenibut is a Russian anti-anxiety drug developed in the 1960s for Soviet cosmonauts to stay calm in space without losing focus. In Russia, it requires a prescription. In the United States, it's sold legally as a dietary supplement online. People take it for social anxiety, stress relief, and sleep. The pills are swallowed, and the effects take 2 to 4 hours to arrive. Once absorbed, phenibut crosses the blood-brain barrier and enhances GABA, the neurotransmitter that calms neural activity. It also mildly affects dopamine receptors, adding a subtle mood lift. The onset is gradual and gentle. Social anxiety fades, conversations flow naturally, and stress dissolves without sedation. You feel like a better version of yourself, confident but clear-headed. At the peak, which can last 6 to 8 hours, everything feels manageable. Music sounds richer, sleep comes easily, and worry simply stops occupying mental space. There's no euphoria, just a smooth, functional calm that feels almost too good to be real. Then, the tolerance builds. Within days of regular use, the same dose stops working. Users increase the amount, chasing that initial relief. When you try to stop, withdrawal hits harder than almost any other legal substance. Severe rebound anxiety, insomnia, tremors, rapid heartbeat, and, in extreme cases, hallucinations and seizures. The withdrawal can last weeks and requires medical supervision to taper safely. Salvia divinorum. Salvia is a psychoactive plant native to Mexico, legal in many places and sold in smoke shops. People smoke the dried leaves or concentrated extracts from a pipe or bong. The trip lasts only 5 to 10 minutes, but those minutes feel like lifetimes. Salvia doesn't resemble LSD, mushrooms, or any classic psychedelic. The experience is stranger and far less pleasant. Once inhaled, salvinorin A, the active compound, floods kappa opioid receptors in your brain. These receptors don't produce euphoria. They distort reality in ways that feel alien and uncomfortable. The onset is immediate and violent. Within seconds, you forget you took a drug. You forget you're a person. Reality doesn't just shift, it replaces itself completely. At the peak, users report becoming objects. You might believe you're a chair, a wall, a page in a book being flipped. Some feel like they're being pulled through dimensions, stretched across space, or living someone else's entire life from birth to death. Laughter is common, but purely mechanical. Your body reacting while your mind is gone. There's no euphoria, no insight, just confusion and the overwhelming sensation that this will never end. Then, as abruptly as it started, the come-down begins. Reality rebuilds itself piece by piece. You remember language, your body, your name. Most people are left disoriented, disturbed, and with zero desire to try it again. Salvia offers no wisdom, no fun, no connection.